The Left Wing Back's coverage of the Carlow Football Championships is brought to you in association with Talbot Fitness Carlow, Connolly's Top Line Bidnestown, Scott's Bouncing Castles, J&J Services Tullow, Seamus Byrne Electrical, your number one for pitch floodlighting installation, Milano's Takeaway Bidnestown, PFT Travel, the Arboretum Garden Centre, Ray Whelan Limited, Art Spas and Carlow Electrical Services.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome on in to the Left Wing Back podcast. No, Kevin Regan has not put on 4 stone and suddenly become this size. It's Brian O'Donoghue here presenting tonight to allow Kevin a chance to finally contribute a little bit more because he has a lot to say and a lot of valuable things to say too. Also tonight we have Paul Byrne, aka Fisher from Clonmore. Welcome along, lads, and keep our country now.
How's it going, Brian? How are things?
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Brian. But the only thing is, the host got a lot better looking. Whatever we'll get bigger.
And in fairness, appreciate you trusting me with your baby because it can't be easy to let go of the reins. Although in fairness, just to let everyone know, Kev still has control of everything, so in 2 seconds he can just cut me off. So there's no panic at all. It was some weekend of football action, not just I'd say senior intermediate level, but the junior threw up a couple of good results as well. But we're going to start at the senior level, and personally I think there's only one place to start, and that's with the Pal O'Loughlin result. Now, Kev, I know you said that the left wing back predicted that result, and I have to be honest and say I had no hand that or part in that prediction because I did not see that happening. I would have felt Pal must have been a sting in the tail, especially after losing to Rathvilly, and it turned out O'Loughlin, I mean, they came out all guns blazing and got the result.
Yeah, and look, I didn't see a ball being kicked, but I felt you've seen enough to be able to make a calculated judgment, and I felt that there was an awful lot of disregard for O'Loughlin, given the calibre of player that they have and that they were going to get a result somewhere. I did feel it was going to be this one, and that's not because Paul are a soft touch, they're county champions, clearly not a soft touch, but the calibre of player that they're actually missing. Like, you take Kieran Moore now of any team, and Jack Brennan only coming into it, and a few others missing. It has an effect. Like, do the opposite. Look at O'Loughlin. Take Mikey Bambrick out of it. Take Shawnee Bambrick out of it. And they're a completely different side. Now, it's in no way surprising. It blows the whole thing wide open. And Dunzer, I don't know how you've done this, because in the full of me health, I need to Norfin to try work out permutations. But you have worked out permutations, and literally anything could happen in this group next weekend as a result. It's blown wide open.
7 of the 8 teams, Fish, can still win the senior championship. Which I don't remember happening. Maybe it has happened the last few years. I don't recall it being as open. Poor Alfena are the only ones who can't get out of the group at this stage. But the other 7 teams, you can honestly say, depending on results next week, can advance to the next round. And in theory, a couple of results go back to back, and next thing you're in a county final, and anything can happen in a final.
Yeah, the only thing I presume with 7 capable or in a position to win, of that 7, there's surely then 3 that potentially could end up, or 2 could potentially end up playing Fenna then, could they? On the flip side.
Pal could end up
in the relegation.
Yeah, on the other side, yeah. So this is literally it, where anything could happen. So, Brian, I think we figured, you figured, not me, you were figured, that Pal could end up there, Aero could end up there, O'Loughlin, can they still end up there? I'm not too sure. You do it there in black and white.
Yeah, I'll go down through it. So in Group 1, Rangers, Leighlin and Bidnestown are all through to the next round, and the only question is in what order. All right. Yep. In Group 2, then, Rathvilly are the only team guaranteed a spot in at least a quarter final. The O'Loughlin-Rathvilly game could be a battle for top spot. And then if Palatine beat Aerogue and Palatine face a battle, knowing that if Aerogue win, Palatine are facing a relegation battle against Fenna in the other round. Like, I don't think any bookie would have given you odds on the county champions potentially coming up against the second game before a relegation playoff. Like it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's mad. It is mad stuff when you look at it from that point of view. And like Brian, this would be a common enough thing across the pond here, we'll say, in Laois, but I don't ever really remember seeing it happen in Carlow as such, because you get teams that come with periods of dominance. Like there's no great 1-in-a-row champions as such. Like Pal go back to back, Leighlin go back to back, Rathvilly, they come strong. They're thereabouts. They never seem to be in trouble after that. But this really is a bizarre set of circumstances which could pan out. And let's face it, like this game is over in Fenagh, Éire and Palatine. Like anything could happen. Traditionally, we know there's a bit of a hoodoo or an Indian sign. They do have over Pal, but they would love nothing better to pull the rug under them this time.
Definitely. And just I go through more of the permutations in a sec, right? But one of the conclusions I came to last night was that when the final whistle blows, obviously the games are all going to drop at the same time. But when the final whistle goes, we'll be in a situation where literally every player, bar the lads in the Fenagh team, will have to turn around and look and see, well, what were the results? It'd be like the Blackburn United situation back in, was it 93 or 94, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I don't know how many years of watching football, but I never remember going into Dunzer Park or the train centre in Fenagh and not being able to reasonably be able to predict what's going to happen. Like it
could be like New Year's Eve of old. The phone network might not be able to cope at that particular point. There'll be text messages flying everywhere.
Definitely. And we need to talk about the fixtures as well, because obviously you've got Pal Éire is fixed for Training Centre in Fenagh. Now that's a huge game to have in the Training Centre, which is a fabulous facility, especially with the shop there now and everything. It's class, but it's probably a game you nearly would have expected to be in Netwatch Cullen Park. It's just so difficult if every game has to drop at the same time and the permutations are so tight. It's just really tricky. The Rathvilly Éire game, like 30 points. I suppose going by recent form, and I know in the local paper it was said that over the last few years Rathvilly have had sorted the edge, but it's not too long ago like Éire were 4-in-a-row champions, and for the two of them to produce a 30-point thriller was something else, and there was a huge crowd in there their evening, but it was I don't know. It's a bit hard for me with a Rathvilly hat on to look at it unbiasedly. What's the feeling around the county, gentlemen?
Well, Fish, I'd like to get Fish's thoughts on this, because for me the standout thing is the fact that there's 30 points split. As even as a winner you can get out of it. So literally, 16-14, and I mean they play every day of the week, and that's 16-14 or a 1 or 2 score game most times anyway. But it's really pleasing. Like we always would say from a coach's point of view, whenever I was involved with Leighlin that last year, try score 16 times, right? And or else the target, try equate that to 16. And most of the winners are hitting that, but they hit 16 scores and still hit 14. If you had 14 scores in Carlow, a lot of the time you're going to win, like. Mm-hmm. And didn't the other day. The scores, from what I could see in the highlights, looked of real high quality, high caliber scores as well. No different to Leighlin and Bynderstown, which I know we'll come to. No different to the scores in Pal or Leighlin as well. That's kind of stand out for me. Fish, I don't know, you're a bit closer to Brian's side than I am, but there is big talk about Rathvilly over the past few weeks, all of a slap, and that 5-1 is actually looking fairly all right, I think, now at the moment anyway.
Yeah, well, yeah, but it like if you look at the games so far, like they're certainly the form team, and as you say, putting up 16 points against anybody or scoring 16 times, invariably, if teams are scoring that amount of times, there might be a couple of goals through in there. So I suppose from an Éire point of view, they'd probably be looking at it. Look, we managed to penetrate as well 14 times, and if 12 of them were points and 2 of them were goals, we'd have won it. That type of a thing. So there's very little in between all of them. But just looking at the highlights as well, I thought some of the scores from Rathvilly were just fantastic. Brendan got a couple. He got one off his left foot there near the end as well. I think Jake Elliott got one. It was class. I think Brandon got one. Just you know, lads just weren't afraid to shoot. And look at traditionally, you know, Rathvilly have probably won county championships scoring half that, or scoring half the amount of times, you know.
Quarter of it.
It's nice to watch. What they're doing now is nice to watch. You know, your corner forwards are coming off the end line, they're looping. It looks good. It definitely looks good now. You know, to be fair, Aero got some nice scores on the day as well. But from what I could see, certainly on the highlights, I know there was a bit of confusion there with a bit of the commentary on what I was looking at, but as to who was scoring, I think Brendan Hennessy had to correct it a couple of times. We were getting the ones wrong, but like it was nip and tuck the whole way from the bits. And fair enough, look at highlights or highlights, but certainly, you know, Rathvilly definitely looked like the form team.
And it was interesting. We started off with Brendan in full forward for the whole of the first half. He was in midfield for the throw-in, went in full forward, and our lads didn't really kick much ball into him. Aero had an awful lot of the possession, and they within a half time point up. They were 3 points up with, I think it was 3 or 4 minutes to go till half time, and then there was 3 rapid fire points, made it a bit closer. He was out midfield second half, and she kicked 4 outrageous points that really, but it's really interesting to say about the 14-16 score. So just looking at the results, right? Leighlin 2-13, Pal 14 points. There's 15 scores versus 14 scores. Then you had ourselves and our affiliate and Aero 16-14. Leighlin and Bangladesh 13-17. And then you had Fenna and Rangers 2-12, 14 scores to 9. So like 14 to 15 scores is going to win you pretty much any of these senior championship games, you know. We have to
just jump across and give a mention to Adam McCarron, actually. Maybe that's what you were going to come to there. There's a couple of things on Adam, right? Adam is a player of huge potential. Some coaches hate that word, but he really does have it in his locker. What he needed to do, in my opinion, from what I saw, was bulk up a bit and get a bit bigger. Now, he looks like he's after putting a bit of work in that regard. And the agility, you're talking about scores on the loop. There's one of those scores, a bit of a pirouette job, and he comes in around. Like, and you can talk about this guy. You just get the sense that the more you talk about him, the more he loves it. Maybe like Simon Ray at that age, maybe like Slick, left-footed as well. There's lots of parallels. This guy is going to be key for Aero. I think he's a serious player.
One of the things that stood out there tonight was he just seems to have absolutely, like, it doesn't matter whether he's a tight angle, a wide angle, he will shoot from, like, the confidence doesn't seem to be the problem, you know. And he's such a young guy. Like, I can see, I think I said it in the report, I can see Aero building a team around him with Jordan Morrissey leading the way from out to field, and there's another handful of lads around there that could really, you wouldn't be surprised to see an Aero team starting to build from that. And in saying that, Kev said this to you on the phone, like, okay, Rathvilly have won 2 games, Rangers have won 2 games. Back in 2014, Rathvilly lost the first 2 games, won their third one, went on to win the championship. So, like, we're talking about Pal possibly facing relegation. Pal could win back-to-back championships still, like, and it's wouldn't be one bit surprising, you know. The other thing to talk about then is Rangers. They're now top. They're sitting giant top, 3 points. You know, we were, I suppose, a bit surprised with the drawn game with Leighlin. I thought Bangladesh would have kept it a little bit closer. Obviously, they're short a couple of lads. But I mean, are Rangers now the most dangerous team in the championship? Would anybody want to play them?
Well, sure. It's kind of like I tell you what it's like now. It's like the young one years ago that you were fond of, and you break up with her or whatever, and Shatter going off with some other fella, right? And you're like, well, maybe she'd be different this time. And I just feel the Rangers are kind of like that. You know, they are a team that you can really, you really have a go for in a footballing sense. And then it gets to semi-finals, whatever, and they do go and let you down again, inevitably, and you've made the wrong choice. Is it going to be different this time? Dunzer, like, I know you feel it is a little bit different. The guy they have coaching them shouldn't go unnoticed. Like, this guy, Paul O'Brien's a serious operator, and the fact that, you know, he's come in and he's there overseeing both things, there's not going to be communication issues from the crossover with hurling, because he's obviously over the hurlers too, like, and they're planning they're planning for Kenny champions at the end of the day. They've got momentum behind them. I don't know. I don't know. Have they got the potential to do it? Absolutely. I don't know. Fisher, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I think to be fair to the manager and in fairness to the club, I think it's the only way they could do it. I don't think it works in the dual clubs when you have two different guys and you're pulling against each other to some degree, or trying to prioritize. Look at, as always, they look they look athletic, they look fit. They got some nice scores the other night. Now I have to say, I thought they were they were pretty decent. But having said that, I suppose. It's what will happen from here on in. Really, is where you can judge them. I know did they beat Rathvilly a couple of years ago, Brian, or the semi-final or quarter-final? Sorry, the quarter-final. I'm not sure, but maybe Rathvilly got over them. I was at it, and I just remember saying, you kind of say to yourself, if they weren't a dual club, would they win senior championships in football? Possibly, yes. But then the other side of it is, if they weren't a dual club with the success they have on the hurling field, would you still have the same lads with the same appetite to play football? Because obviously these lads will play anything at this stage. You could have a rounders team down there and everybody will pull together, I suppose, at this stage and play it. You know what I mean? So I think, I don't think one code harms the other down there. I think it's just trying to get lads to stay injury free, trying to obviously prioritise to some degree, but certainly when they put on the the football boots and the jersey and take off the helmets, they're still a force to be reckoned with.
Fiacre Fitzpatrick, and I no hesitation saying this, would play for any senior team, I would think, in most clubs in Leinster. He is an absolute, not just an outstanding athlete, but some of his ball skills, he's able to field it high. He's tough in the tackle, curls over balls from 40 meters. Like, this guy is absolutely serious. And I'll be honest, he wasn't on my radar as a footballer. I've obviously been, keep an eye on the hurling and that, and you see the name, but he is absolutely like a serious footballer.
He's class. I was involved in a couple of 20s teams and that where Fiacre was in, and obviously you were getting them when he wasn't hurling and stuff like that. But he's class. He's as you say, he's an absolute athlete. I'd say he's professional in everything he does, to be quite honest with you. But he was very good the other night as well. Now I have to say though, I do have sympathy. I did have sympathy for Fenna. I thought they did a lot of good things. You know what I mean? They did an awful lot of good things. It's like first 5 or 6 minutes there, Pádraig Hines was in full forward and he absolutely, ripped the whole lot apart in about 5 minutes. And he was excellent. I thought Cormac Lomax was very good. I thought Jamie McCabe was doing well. There was 3 or 4 or 5 lads in the first 10, 15 minutes I thought were excelling. But just as it went on, I suppose Rangers were able to kind of, the couple of the big men there, they were kicking ball into Edward Byrne and people like that, and they were just able to pick out scores a little bit handier. Fella, probably worked a bit hard, maybe took it into tackles that they shouldn't have bothered taking it into, kind of stuff. It's
Fenna actually, like, and I say this as somebody who never kicked senior football in my life, so like, who might be even making this statement, but they frustrated the life out of me. I'm looking at lads on that field who are like Fenna lads who are absolute athletes, of like top class athletes, well able to play football, and they just, I don't know, is it a confidence thing? Is there that step up when you come up to senior, that all of a sudden you play within yourself and you don't express yourself as much? But there's so much more football in that Fenna team, and like, I wouldn't be one bit surprised if whoever they end up meeting in the relegation, if they manage to get a result, there's tons more football in them, Kev.
There is, and Dunzer, I know we've been speaking about this, and Fisher, I'd be interested to hear what you think of it as well. But for me, if you go back through the last, say, 10, 12 years of teams that have come up from intermediate, there's a fierce yo-yo effect. Now, I feel that Fenna, in my opinion, were the best placed team to go up, sustain the grade, and actually make a serious impact at the grade as well, given the raw materials that they have at their disposal. Now, I know at the start of the year, I think there was difficulty in trying to actually get someone to come in and coach or whatever. And fair play to the Hickeys, 2 passionate clubmen. They've come in and they are doing their best with them. Now, there is always an issue there. I'm not going to say it's an issue, but there's a difficulty with Ballinkillen. And it's not animosity. It's just, I often think, Jays, if they were out in fucking Loughlin Bridge, they know what it's like when you have 3 or 4 football clubs. But there seems to be that little bit of difficulty that arises from time to time with that. Like, if you were to ask me now, you can have the choice of coaching a team, and you could see somewhere that you could make tangible progress with, I would pick Fennet, because I think if they do go down this year and they come back up again, which I think there's a good chance they would, you could see what you could get out of those lads. If get them on board, see the talent they have. And from that point of view, Brian, that you said it, they have disappointed. They've disappointed me anyway, for sure. Only because they're so much better, not because you want to be knocking the chops or anything like that. And Paul, I don't know, am I talking shy when I say they're the best placed team to come up and make an impact? But I can't remember any other team having the level of talent they have coming up on promotion,
Yeah, no, I think definitely you're right. I think when they won it, certainly because of the age profile of the players, because of the fact that, obviously just on a personal level, you'd know a lot of them and all of that type of thing. And you'd say definitely they would survive. But again, you know what I mean? But for maybe one or two additional lads there the other night, they probably would have beat Rangers. You know what I mean? We wouldn't be talking about them in the context of a relegation battle. I do believe, though, even in a relegation final, I think there's another kick in them. I think there's definitely another kick in them. I think if they maybe play with, let's just say, slightly more abandonment as opposed to anything else, as if they're just playing in the schoolyard and it's a one-off game, I think there's another kick in them, definitely.
Yeah. I think, interestingly, in the fixtures this weekend, their game was actually in the training centre against Leighlin. Now, you probably wouldn't be giving them much of a chance, and I say that respectfully. And Leighlin isn't too far away, so they probably can't really argue that it's not like a Crow Park job with gloves or anything, we need to move on to intermediate, but just to maybe go through the permutations, just to finish off the senior, if that's all right with you. So in Group 1, we said it already, but Leighlin, Rangers and Bagnallstown are all guaranteed to go through. They just have to find out who tops it and who goes second and third. So that's what they'll be looking for when the final whistle blows on Sunday evening. In Group 2 then, Rathvilly are through, not necessarily guaranteed a semi-final spot, though a Leighlin Rathvilly game, that is basically the top of the table clash, and then Palleray Rogue, the loser of that, potentially could end up in a relegation. If Leighlin beat Rathvilly, then the loser of Palleray Rogue goes into relegation. Is that clear, or am I going too fast?
I think it's as clear as you can make it, because there's so much with it. The clarification on the score difference, Brian, actually, we had a lot of people messaging us asking what is going on, given the circumstances below in Clare. And actually, a shout out to Hugh Paddy O'Byrne, who's in touch with us recently. He's coaching Kilnamona down there, and I don't know, did it work out in the end? I didn't actually pay too much heed to this, but he was telling me there was a chance going to the last round that the last four winners were not going to go to the group stages, which was just mad stuff altogether. But what happened down there is, and this is the whole thing with score difference. So as we know, the head-to-head comes into play first, and if you have three teams that are level on points, the understanding is, and I do believe there's something official going out tomorrow, but we've got a reliable informant who's been very kind to us, and I won't mention any names. But you get three teams level on points. It's only the score difference between those three teams' games. That's all it is. So disregard the other team that's not involved in it. And
so to use a practical example, then in the group where Fenna have ended up bottom, and not by huge margins, but in theory, then what usually happens, the team that's bottom of the thing, and everyone has maybe put up a big score against them, and it's about well, what the more you can beat them by is going to guarantee you your place. Whereas that's out off the table now, and the games that where it was closer are actually the ones that are going to matter, and that makes it probably that bit fairer as well.
Yeah, and if it gets hairier again, then there's all kinds of stuff like goals, or not goals, scores for will become a thing. Now, hopefully it doesn't get to that level, because Paul Byrne talked about phone calls. I tell you, phone calls and maybe morphine and several other things to try and work out that one, right? But yeah, I think you've summed it up pretty well there.
And I'll tell you what, stay out of the press box on Sunday evening, because with 5 minutes to go, everyone will just be turning around looking up, asking, like, the man that know the answers, which we won't know either, Moving on to the intermediate, for me, massive standout game, history maker, but Killavin and Kilbride, local derby, as tough as a game as you can probably get to referee. And Marion Hayden, first woman to referee an intermediate championship game. Obviously, Pamela had done a junior game, was it last year or the year before? But and I don't mind admitting to people, but I was bringing my niece and nephew to the Rathvilly game, and obviously wanted to do the report on the Kev game, so picked them up and raced into Carlow, stuck behind the tractor. Anyway, coming up the steps, 4 minutes, was it? I think I've seen 2.5 minutes on the clock or something, and up into the press box, and Bambi was there, and I said, "Well, what did I miss?" After missing the goal and a straight red card. And what? So what happened was, almost from the throw-in, it was a line ball, or an instant over on the sideline, and friend to left wing back James Foley went over to put in a challenge. Ball came across far side the field and ultimately ended up with Liam Roberts sticking it in the back of the net for a Kev goal. And then Marion Hayden consulted with her linesman and with the umpires, and next thing, James Foley gets a straight red card. And you could not have written that a fellow referee in the first minute of a local derby in a history-making match where there's a woman referee intermediate game for the first time. If you said that was going to happen, you swear it was made up. But it was. I have to say, she and you'd say it shouldn't matter, but it was historic, and she did an absolutely brilliant job on a game that, I'll be honest, and I used to referee, I would have been shitting my cacks refereeing that game. And that was a really, really as close as a local derby you're going to get. She did an absolutely brilliant job. I'm sure James and Pádraig Hickey would disagree, because Pádraig got his marching orders as well for a second yellow. But I mean, it was a tougher game as you get, and obviously Kev came out winners in the end, which puts Kilbride, I suppose, at the bottom of that group. But Fisher, from I suppose with your Clonmore hat on, at the moment, you'd probably rather face Kilbride than Kev when you see a result like that.
I suppose to some degree, and in fairness to Kilbride, and they've done an amazing job there in the last few years, to be quite honest, because I'm sure numbers are not always easy to tug out, and I've seen you see a lot of the same faces and the same names that even would have played against yourself some time ago, and they're still there, and in fairness to them, they're still tugging out, and they're still refusing to give in. And I suppose, look at it, it's not a generation ago like they beat us in the county final, so it's they're a good club in that sense, they'll show up, and that's always a good start. I suppose Kildavin, look at they've obviously become a bit of a dual club lately as well, and a bit of success there, so I don't know whether that had an effect on maybe some of their performances so far. I don't know, but one thing's for sure, they'll be fit and they'll be strong, and they'll be all of those things. I think though, just getting back to Marion's piece, and it's it should be noted, definitely historic. I didn't see the game, I didn't see the incident or either incident, but it takes a bit of bottle to make a big decision like that, especially so early in a game. Especially with everything else that was going on around it in terms of the hype, and I'm sure there was a bit of pressure there on a personal level, but it's a big call. So and obviously, look at, as you say, lads mightn't agree with the call, but to make it takes a bit of battles. I think it won't be long till we're talking about Marion and maybe Pamela as well, doing games at a higher level. No question about it.
Yeah. I go as far as to say there's easier senior games you could have given her to blood her, if you want to use that expression, and there's a great point about how early in the game the famous Roy Keane tackle on, was it Overmars in 2001, when McIntyre got the goal, was it 30 seconds a minute in, and Keane should have got a straight red for absolutely demolishing him, and referee wasn't going to give it. I'm glad Marion wasn't refereeing that game.
But see, the thing is there, and look, we'll make it known. We didn't give much notice, so this is on us. But we did make an attempt to try to get Marion and James on this evening, not to stir a shite up. I know well that if James felt he was wrong, he'd be the first person to say it, and I can guarantee you that man is hurting over that, and he'd be disappointed, because he'd know what goes with it. The whole thing of a referee gets sent off, and he would. I know well he would. I know the type of guy he is. And but I also know that if the two of them were here, they'd probably have a little bit of a chuckle about it. And maybe at the end of the year, that might happen at some stage. All going well anyway. But it was a big call for sure. The other interesting thing, and I want the correction, but I'm fairly certain that James can't referee now this weekend. So the person pulling their hair out the most, it says John McDonald, the fixtures fixture secretary, because we've already got a shortage. Pat Moran at 72 or 3 years of age, referee Leighlin Bridge in the Cox. You know, so there's a few headaches after coming out with that one, Brian.
Definitely. The Clonmore Nave 1 game then, I was at that on was that Friday night?
Thursday.
I tell you one thing, Clonmore absolutely love hard work. Like, God, and there's some great footballers, but my God, Fish, like time and time again, doing all the hard parts, like breaking a tackle, and then maybe a 10-yard hand pass, and like they bounce 5 yards into it felt like I want to say it's been hard actually without it, like because they had done as much as they could possibly do, and when they came to the easy parts, then they seemed to, I don't know, lose concentration or whatever it was, you know.
Yeah, and I suppose again, if we get back to the earlier conversation in relation to the amount of scores it takes to win matches, I suppose I think Michael got 9 points and Clonmore got 1-6. I don't think either of those scorers would win any match, to be honest with you. Outside of managing to draw that one. I suppose the interesting thing going into that game really was, I suppose, a fairly below par performance by Michael against St. Patrick's and. And I was at that game, and I thought, to be fair, they were a little bit all over the place. And I think, in fairness, Adam Kenny summed it up very well when you were interviewing him the other day. It was very obvious from the first day that football was almost a little bit foreign to them at that stage. They needed to get back into the feel of it and all of that. But I have to say, fair play to Mick Byrne and to all the players there. Like they were a different animal completely against Clonmore. But having said that, that doesn't necessarily say that Clonmore shouldn't have beaten them. They probably should have on form going into the game. But certainly on the night, I think, and again, I think Adam kind of said it. Like the Clonmore goal certainly tipped everything in favour, and you would have said to yourself at that point, Clonmore going to see it out now at this stage, But I think to take your point, then there was an awful lot of turnover ball, there was an awful lot of work done, and then a pass going astray. And I think overall, and I think the Clonmore lads, would be, I'd say, relatively disappointed to some degree, but also I suppose, it's a draw, it's a point. They're guaranteed knockout football. But I'd expect a bit of a reaction there, and it'll be interesting to see actually Michael and Grange in the last game, because I thought Grange again, pretty decent in the first game, and obviously, and you'll probably talk about it, but obviously we're pretty decent against Tullow as well.
Grange, Tullow, like if you thought Kilbride and Kildavin was hard hitting and tough game, like, and I can totally understand the sensibility in putting David Hickey in charge of Tullow and Grange that night, because especially down in Fenagh, I don't know what it is, the difference between a county ground and a kind of what feels like a club pitch, but just everything feels a lot more localized, and the crowd, I have to say now, as a neutral looking at it, every block, every run that was checked, everything was getting a cheer from on the sidelines, and it made for like a really, really entertaining game. And John Murphy was probably on one leg, and had he been on 2 legs, I'd say the result could have been slightly different. But in saying that, I have to give credit to Tullow. They seem extremely organised. They seem to, the 15 lads and even the couple of lads that came on, they all seem to know what their job is and what the end I suppose product is supposed to be, and it makes them really, really difficult to play against. Like, were the 8-10 minutes into the first half with no score, and there was no sign of panic whatsoever. They just stuck to their guns, and that's very difficult in a local derby like that, Kev.
It is for sure, yeah, and I would have liked to have seen that one now, myself in particular. And if you don't mind, I just want to skip back to Adam Kenny one more time, because there's a couple of noteworthy things there. We got a lot of positive feedback on that particular one. Adam's very honest. I would have played with Adam, years ago, and I know he went up to collect a trophy one stage and didn't spare Kieran Murphy. I think they'd been written off, or there was an intermediate final maybe a couple of years ago, which is gas. So he always speaks to mind. The other thing he provided was context on that performance. Like they had 2 or 3 practice matches cancelled for various reasons, which does offer a bit more, I suppose, of an explanation as to why they were so poor first time out. And the last thing, I won't go into the exact details on it, but Adam Kenny's been on a bit of a journey himself, and he's playing football when at one stage it mightn't have looked likely that he'd be playing any sport, and he's still playing very, very well. So I just like to put that maybe on record that it's amazing what he's doing, and I think the way he speaks and the leadership he shows, the honesty, it has to get mentioned here tonight.
Fair play. I didn't see the Air Og Ballinabranna game, but I did see. I've seen both teams play at this stage. So I watched Air Og play against Kilbride, and I've seen Ballinabranna beat Callavan. And from looking at those 2 games, I would have said Ballinabranna would have put 6 points in Air Og. And when the result came back the other night, I actually had to check it again, and I was sure. And that's like, it's no disrespect to Air Og, but the team that I seen against Kilbride didn't look even capable of kicking that kind of score. Obviously, you guys will tell me now that I obviously didn't know what I was talking about, but was that a surprising result to see the gap in those 2? Paul?
Yeah, I would have thought so, because I suppose when you were looking at the score to the first game in the Kilbride game, you were kind of questioning, I suppose, maybe were Kilbride, better than maybe people expected, or why was the score so low and in relation to Air Og. And as you say, then people at the game were kind of going, can't see Air Og kicking that. But having said that, like, I'd watched Air Og in the Division 2 league final when they played Clonmore down in Fenny. I was kind of, if you were going into this championship, you'd be saying, who are the teams you'd be kind of, expecting to do well. Like they'd be up there with the top 2 or 3, no matter what division they're in, So, I probably was a bit more surprised with the score the first day than maybe the score the other day, to be honest with
you. Yeah. Kev, any thoughts on Ballinabranna? You've been from up around that country.
Yeah, well, sure. I suppose I can't be a hypocrite and say there was a blatant disregard for for All Auckland, without saying there's probably a bit of a disregard for Ballinabranna too. And I was one of those people disregarding them prior to their first round win or whatever. And
because they've lost a lot of players, haven't they?
Sure. Like Lunny's playing senior championship with Raheny, and he scored a penalty there actually last week. Ben Dorgan's playing with Greg Cullen and doing fairly well over there too. Like Jackson, Gertie, all those guys, they're serious players. And I'm leaving out a heap, but that's just a few. Jamie Lunny's another one, I think. These are good guys. Like, so, like Air Og's second team winning and doing stuff like that though it's never really a surprise, because, but I suppose maybe from the point of view, if you look at the age profile of that second team, usually they've got a sprinkle of experience, and they still have to an extent, but they don't have anywhere near that balance. It's a very, very young side, and that's probably what's impressing the most there. Like, but that's it. That group is a 51 now this weekend.
Oh, definitely. And I think Air Og the first week out lost a couple of their intermediate players. They got runs with the senior squad, and that shortened them as well. So all the more reason why you weren't expecting to beat Ballinabranna by 6 points. And again, back to the thing of 14 or 15 points to win a game. There's 114 to 1-8. And then to go back to Grange and Tullow, Grange now play Navan in a what ultimately will be a bottom of the table decider or quarter-final place. Judging by going by the 2 performances of both teams, that is an impossible game to call. If Grange can put a fit John Murphy on the pitch, and maybe Kieran Pender in the whole of his health as well, they will score goals. There's no doubt in my mind about that. And Navan, they haven't clicked yet. Like, if you want to argue that their first 2 games, if they've been their practice matches, they're due in the same way Fenner are due a performance. Navan surely are as well. What do we think, gentlemen?
Well, Fish, I leave this one to you, but all I say is that fixture went to extra time last year, and that was Cullen Park. I think was a quarter final. Really certain it was. Damo Jordan was beside me. Damo was over in Australia now, having a great time, I see. And I hope he, if it's half as good as it looks on Instagram, he's having the time of his life anyway. But Jesus, he was under fair pressure, and even that went extra time. It was an absolute cracker, and I'd say this will be no different. Like, and I think Grange have to win, but a draw does Michael. If right,
yep, because they've already a draw. Yep.
Draw those Michael. And speaking of Australia, I'd say Michael wouldn't mind dragging Donal Smithers home for that one. But aside from all of that, I think just looking at the games so far, I suppose, look at your head would probably say Grange to some degree, but then you're kind of going, well, you know, you see the spirit that sort of Michael are able to build the further they go on, you know what I mean? Like, they're now going to their third game. They've got maybe the game out of the way where they, you know, were only sort of coming together, and then they have had the game against Clonmore, whereby maybe they started to get some things right. And you'd say, well, if they click, you know, in the third game, well, they'll be very hard beaten. But I kind of do fancy to some degree Grange as well. I thought there was probably enough in them in terms of potential goals which will decide the game. You know, I think whatever team can maybe hit the net twice maybe will win the game, I think, regardless of the point scoring that goes on, you know.
And let me add a little bit of spice to that by saying that Navo and v Grange netwatch Cullen Park on the 8th. That's Saturday or Sunday.
The 8th is Saturday. I'll tell you, do you know what? We have the full round here. I'd actually go down through the whole lot of them here, Dunzer, because it's how
the spice I was going to add was referee Marion Hayden.
Go for it.
Marion Hayden, yeah. So, yeah. So, lads,
they're giving her a tough introduction, aren't they?
Absolutely.
No better woman to handle it, but geez, that's a sink or swim job there, and
and when you actually look at the fixtures, the other 3 or 4 games, the referees haven't even been picked yet. So it's as if she's first choice from here on in. You know.
You with the fixtures there, Dunzer, have you? Do you want to?
Yeah. So in intermediate, so Ballinabranna play Kilbride. That's 7 o'clock. Netwatch Cullen Park on the 8th. 8th Saturday, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then at 7 o'clock.
It's Friday. Yeah, it's Friday.
Yeah, it's Friday. So then, okay, Ballinabranna play Kilbride Friday night, 7 o'clock. Rogue play Kildavin Friday night, 7 o'clock. That's in the training centre. And then Grange and Michael play at 8:30 in Netwatch Cullen Park. And Clonmore and Tullow play at 4:15 on Sunday in Netwatch Cullen Park. So Friday night and Sunday.
Yeah. Michael and Grange at what time?
Michael and Grange is at 8:30 Friday night, Netwatch Cullen Park.
Right.
There'll be all hours coming over.
No fun. Sure.
And something I wanted, speaking of fixtures and different venues, right? And this weekend is probably one of the most difficult weekends for the organisation that is the GAA, because I was asking Brian O'Neill earlier about this, and he was very kind to come back with information on it. But basically, to run a double header in Netwatch Cullen Park, you need between 20 and 25 stewards as a minimum. So you have a weekend now where you've Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night, where you have 2 venues. It takes 12 stewards to run a double header in training centre. So you need 35 volunteers to be running 2 venues, plus an event controller and, you know, first aid or whatever the case may be. And like, I know at times people give out about things, this, that, they're not being open, or toilets or that, but like, it takes a serious amount of volunteers. And like, personally, I would find it very, very hard to go and steward at a gate and not be the fella in the stand with the high-vis jacket, at least be able to get to see the match. Like, to volunteer your time and not to get to watch the matches is, I think, that deserve huge credit, you know?
Yeah, agreed. 100%. It is difficult. So why don't you give the whole lot of them, Dunzer? We give the senior and the junior A.
Yeah, just senior. And I actually want to talk about junior A as well in terms of the weekend's action. But in the senior fixture then, so it's Tinryland and Fenna. That's at 5 o'clock on Saturday evening in the training centre. And then At the same time, Rangers and Bagnallstown play in Netwatch Cullen Park. That's 5 o'clock on Saturday as well. Aerogue and Pal, they play on Sunday at 6, and that's in the training centre. Which that's going to be. And then Rathvilly and Leighlin is in Netwatch Cullen Park at 6 as well. So they all have to drop at the same time, obviously. So
well, you want to send the 25 shorts out to Fenna, lad, for Aerogue and Pal.
And leave no stewards and no referee and Rathvilly Leighlin, see what happens.
Yeah.
But do you think it matters? Do you think the venue will make a difference to that Pal Aerogue game? I'd hate to ref it, I'll be honest, down there.
Yeah. Go on, Fish.
Yeah, no, I think it will. I think any game. Look at Fenna. It's an ideal venue. Look at, we played the league final there this year. It's a good venue. Is it a championship venue? I'm not so sure in the context of supporters, and look at, maybe we're all a bit selfish and we're a bit too spoiled in Dr. Cullen. But it's nice to watch a match from some bit of elevation. It's tricky watching on the flat. I presume it'll be on pitch 1, obviously, where there's some element of fencing anyway. So. I'd imagine that's where it'll be. I think it definitely brings a different atmosphere. I think there's definitely a different atmosphere down there. Weather-wise, I presume it'll probably be okay, but of course, bad weather affects there a lot worse than maybe it would in Dr. Cullen, particularly wind. It can be tricky enough down there. I think the weather forecast is probably okay for the weekend. But I do think it brings a different dynamic to it. Who will it suit is the question, really. Who would it suit more? Or are Aerogue, happier playing in, the bit of a cauldron that's Dr. Cullen, or will Pal be happy to kind of maybe get Aerogue out of there? I don't know, to be honest with you. I suppose.
Sorry for going across you, Paul, but I can't remember the last time Aerogue played outside Dr. Cullen Park.
Like the Dunzer Park.
Yeah. I remember Pal playing out there against, I think it was Ballinarana a few years ago, right? But and someone will correct me on that probably, but it obviously wasn't a game of standout anyway that I can't remember. But
well, actually, I now that you say it, Kev, Rangers played Aerogue in Bagnallstown in 2012, was it? Maybe, and Rangers pushed them close. That I remember James Hickey was playing. So it could be 2012, but I'll never forget Rathvilly playing Kilbride down in Kildavin, and Kilbride turned Rathvilly over. Small, tight pitch, absolutely suited them. It was like playing in Kilbride, and it definitely makes a difference. I would think the venue gives Pal the edge, and when Aerogue people are watching this back there on, they'll go, "What does Donoghue know?" But it just would seem to me that it'd be something that might suit them. Should we move on to Junior A?
Yeah, and you know what? You're talking about venues. It's probably not a bad segue, because down in Ballinabally there on Thursday evening for Leighlin Bridge and the Fighting Cocks, and it was savage. It was
where was the camera set?
So John Nolan's got, it's not a HiPod tower or something similar. That joke is literally on the sideline, and it just beams up straight into the sky about, I don't know, it wouldn't be great at estimating approximate distances, but it goes up a fair bit into the sky, the height of a floodlight nearly. Yeah. And then beams down, because it was like the San Zero, wasn't it?
It was class. Yeah. It was absolutely class. And obviously Sean O'Brien, two famous heads in it. Sean O'Brien and Pat Moran, both involved. Now, if I thought those lads were going to meet, I wouldn't have thought it would have been in a Junior A football match. But Kev, you were at. Tell us the crack.
So it had a bit of everything. Like it had a bit of everything. It was old school championship game. So that's a local-ish enough derby as well. Like you're over in the Cox 10 or 15 minutes from Leighlin. So it always has a bit of bite. I was at the corresponding fixture last year over in the Cox, and physical games, always tough, hard physical games. And sure, if you want one of those, what better man than Pat Moran to ref it? So and I like, do you know what, right? I got fair side with Pat. You know what you get from Pat, so just roll with it, right? He doesn't take nonsense. The more you go on to him, the least like you are to get. If you have a joke and have a laugh, enjoy the game, you get on fine. And there was one stage where Aidan was going through on goal. It was 100% a foul, but he also made sure he was going to be fouled, if that makes sense. And I'm convinced that's the reason he wasn't given the decision. And I just laughed, because I couldn't get that, like, even though I was against the home club or whatever. But genuinely on another night, I have to say this, like, on another night it could have been 3 or 4 red cards. But I'd be of that kind of mindset that you give a lad the benefit of the doubt anyway, probably because the disciplinary record wasn't always exemplary. But their championship games, I'd let a little bit go. Maybe some lads have said it's a bit too much to be letting go. But yeah, it was an enjoyable contest. Look, as you said, Sean O'Brien was in full forward. First or second minute, first ball went in, God pivot over the bar. He did look rusty after that, I have to be honest. Simple things like soloing, hop, the ball was getting away on him a few times, but you can see what he's capable of. You can see what he has. Alan Quigley was the man, plain and simple. He was magnificent in the game. I think he got 1-6. Probably could have ended up with 2-6 or 2-7. And so we know what he's capable of. Like they're really good forwards. Like they have target man and O'Brien. Matty Dowling is another ageless wonder. As the years go on, he's still producing the goods. Quigley, they're a good side. Like I really impressed by them, and I had a feeling when I heard Maurice Brown, Tony Wilder was involved. All right, there's something different about them now this year, you know. And
the management team there that matters, but like senior clubs would probably look for in the future, like, you know.
Yeah, and Brian, there's a point on this actually, because I know we were chatting about it. I'd like to bring it onto the podcast. I was saying to you about the moment between Leighlin Brennan. Now, Leighlin Brennan, you know, he's after been in with the county, right? He goes up and he caught ball after ball over the middle of the field. He was immense. But I think it was about 10 or 12 minutes into the second half, the Cox to the 45, and he just goes, "Who's on 14? Who's on 14?" to Sean O'Brien, obviously. Now, O'Brien pushed him twice. And the second one, fairly heavily, maybe with a close fist as well, right? And he went flying. And I was like, Jesus, this is going to be saucy. So Liam stayed on him as the ball came in over the top, rose above him, caught this ball, and sure, the whole crowd lifted. And 20 minutes left, and Loughlin Bridge didn't score until about 18 of that out of 20. So 2 minutes to go. So that was the moment that was going to change the whole game if they went up and got a score after. It didn't. O'Brien had the last laugh. It was a great moment. But the reason we say this now, Dunzer, you felt that Brendan Murphy get the same treatment. So Brendan playing for us in Carlow, we love it, right? But when he's playing for Rathvilly and something goes against him, it lifts the opposition. And that's going to be the same with Sean O'Brien. I couldn't agree more with you when you said it to me.
I'll never forget, is it 2 years ago? Jamie kick out, was it a Rathvilly kick out? And Jamie Clark jumped above Brendan and pulled the ball over his head. And like the Bagnallstown crowd were and like rightly so, sure, it was a serious piece of field, a great piece of skill, like, but even more so to do it against this, you know, former professional athlete, and you know, it does, like, as Paddy O'Shea used to say to the Westmeath boys, it lifts the opposition, you know, that famous speech that he gives. Yeah, and it's great, yeah, and like every team that has that standout talisman, like it's the same. Say if it's their Rogue and someone blocks down Sean Gannon or someone puts a block down on the county man, whatever team it is, there is no like better lift for the team that puts in that block, you know. It nearly makes it. It nearly puts that person, then that county man or that main target player, it puts an awful lot of pressure on them to not make a mistake. You know, you can forgive the fella making his debut, the Liam Gavins or the Brandon Kellys or I'm trying to think with Tom Pollard's playing a long time now, but the lad making his debut is allowed to get away with a few mistakes, you know, but the standout fella can't, like, you know.
The other thing it is though, Brian, is this the biggest compliment you could ever get paid if you want to flip that and think about it a different way. Because if that's what the opposition think when you don't do well, it means you're obviously a pretty good fucking player.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's all a bit of psychology, I guess, too.
Yeah. And I think if it happened to me, I'd be crying. But fish.
I think everybody should aspire to be hated by the opposition because you're obviously doing something right. Every fellow should be aspiring to be hated. No question about it.
Yeah.
Kev, I loved your headline on the Blues game with Leighlin. Too old, too slow. Was it 2-4?
I've got to be honest now. That's a borrowed phrase from Dalo's hurling pod before I went behind the paywall. It was TJ Ryan. It should be there if someone puts a quick search into Twitter. TJ Ryan was talking about his brother Donny and someone had said in the paper the week before the game that he was too old or he shouldn't be playing. So he's walking off the field and he goes, "Hey, don't you Ryan, too old, too slow, 2-4." He just goes like that. So whenever I saw that, and thanks, I should say thanks to him and Byrne as well. He's been sending in some reports to us, which is really helped. It's very hard to get everywhere. Thanks to you as well, Dunzer and Bambi and all the boys that help us out in that regard. But like Mark Carpenter, I don't want to put an exact age on him because I don't know his exact age, but he must be the wrong side of 40. Like into the wrong side of 40. As in closer to 50. Like, is what I mean.
Fish, you must know. He must be. Is
I think 40 than 50, but he's over 40 certainly, and I don't think it's even the age is the determining factor. It's the amount of football and hours that he's put in his life, in as much as his age. I seen him playing maybe 2 years ago in Tullow. Came on, just cute, did everything right, got a handy free or two, managed to sort of hang on to an arm as he was going by, and all of the good traits that you need. And kicking 2-4 there, look at, regardless, it's what level it's at. It's adult football, and 2-4 at that age is pretty impressive.
I just threw him into Google there for the crack, and one of the headlines that's coming up is he captained Carlow against doesn't say who, but in May 2006. So I mean, if we allow for him to be 30 in 2006, that puts him a fairly advanced footballing age at this stage. But he's great, and I suppose it's obviously that was the Blues against Tyrone second team, but like Tyrone have so many numbers that a Tyrone second team is an outfit to be reckoned with, like,
they are, Brian. In fairness, they are, and like just a couple of things on Carpenter. The very first podcast we ever did was with Mark Carpenter, and it was an exceptional listen. It was really good. Shameless plug for people to go back and listen to it. But he was quality. He's quality on the field and quality off the field. Carl English and Barry English, of course, are rallying to the cause there as well. And the Blues are now in a position, like they have Leighlin Bridge next week. I wouldn't be surprised to turn them over. And Leighlin are, as you say, a serious side. The thing that we're forgetting over here, Ballin could be a silent assassin on the far side, as could St. Mullins. Like Ballin are after getting 2 wins, probably 2 expected wins over
Pal by 6 the weekend.
Yeah. Now St. Mullins have kind of got over. It could be similar to Michael actually. They've got the first game out of the way, which they weren't overly impressive in. They disposed of Leighlin. Now they've got a win. Like all the talk is in this first group with the Cox, Leighlin, Tyrone and Blues for obvious reasons. The 4 teams you just named out. But it's not to say that a winner won't come from the far side. There's teams of good quality on that as well. And I think the Junior A Championship is a Fisher, you know from last year. It is a tough championship to win, and there is some really good footballers in it. You know what I mean?
100%.
No question. I think it's you find yourself in Junior A, like there's no guarantees that you're going to be back. And I know maybe the Blues and others who may have been at the higher levels who found themselves in it. There's no guarantee. It's very, very tough to get out of it. It's like Leighlin Bridge, to be fair, but for what happened maybe at the end of the drawing game, bit of magic, you'd be in the intermediate and we'd be down there trying to get out of it against the Blues and various others, so it's not a gimme for anybody, any team.
Just to touch on the Junior B, lads, Ascot obviously, looking at the result there the weekend, they look like they have to be favourites. Obviously during the final last year. Can anybody put up to them this year, do we think?
Same reaction as Fisher. And for anyone that's listening and not looking at it, we're like, don't think so. The real impressive thing, Fisher and Brian, I think about Ascot is there are two adult teams fielding this year. And the culmination of the work being done underage is now starting to bear fruit. I think they will win Junior B, and they may well get a double hop. I wouldn't be surprised in the next couple of years that you see them whenever they do come up contesting to go Inter again. Like I haven't seen a whole lot of Fury playing, but Fury is supposed to be right bit of stuff altogether. He was in the county panel again the end of the year. So yeah, I don't know. Fish, you reckon he stopped? I don't think so.
In fairness, I seen him a bit with the Carlow 20s, and he's an athlete. There's no question about that. And playing junior B, if you've a couple of athletes who are able to carry the ball, it'll make it a massive difference to the end result there. I don't see anyone beating him, to be honest. But obviously they beat Clonmore by a good score the other night. Numbers and all that kind of thing is difficult, I suppose, with a lot of clubs who are fielding second team. So I think they'll probably be the strongest in it, whatever they do.
And isn't that the crucial point? Like, there's a sense of natural levitation there in terms of they're the only team in that division, or in the Junior B Championship, who are it's their first team, and in one sense, you would expect them to be Junior A, and in another sense, it's no harm maybe to put that little bit of pressure on them and say, look, guys, it's time you made the step up, because I'm sure like there's some very, very, very proud Ascot people, and I know Ronan's dad was a Clonmore man originally with Donnelly. Frank was a great Clonmore man, but there's no doubt in my mind they want to be Junior A. Like, I remember when I started reffing Ascot Intermediate, and there was people were expecting him at that stage to be looking for promotion, and Ronan obviously was still playing that time, and I can't think of the rest of the boys. Johnny Kavanagh, Jesus Christ! When you think of it, like, they've had talent, and I have to mention my colleague, Fintan Phelan. I know he roots for Ascot. Now he roots for Oak, and it suits him as well, let me tell you. But I think his brother Jack plays centre field for them as well, so I have to give them a mention. Would it be? I say we're heading close to the end, Kev. Time. Could I be so bold, right, to go from Junior B up? So Junior B Group 2, Erogue, Rathvilly, Bagnallstown, Kildavin. Can we each pick 2 teams to come out of that group going into this weekend?
Oh, jeez.
I think, to make it fair on you, Erogue and Rathvilly are both we're not. Sorry, we shouldn't do Junior B yet because they've only played one each.
In that
group. Yeah, so it wouldn't be fair to be calling. So we'll let you off the hook on that one, right? We'll go to Junior A. Is that fair?
Yeah, happy with that. A little bit happier, aren't you? Yeah.
Right, so Junior A Group 2. So you've Ballina on top with 4, Pal second on 2 points, St Mullins on 2, and Leighlin are on bottom, no points as of yet. Fisher, give us 2 out of that group to go through this weekend.
You'd have to say Ballin anyway. I know that I think Kevin might have mentioned that there might have been sort of dark horses there. So Mullins have probably got the hang of it. So maybe Ballin and St Mullins.
Kev?
Yeah, sure. Ballin, you're probably thinking Ballin. Well, sure, it's an interesting fixture now at the weekend, but I'd say Ballin straight through. Yeah, and then sure, St Mullins and Pal after that. The other side is kind of.
Hold on, don't go skipping. You didn't now commit. Which 2 did you say?
Well, there's 3 going over. There's 1 to the semi and there's 2 to quarters.
Now that tells me to shut up. Okay. Sorry, Kev.
Yeah. The other side, the Cocks are already gone through to the semi, so they can't be caught. That
correct. Yeah.
And Ireland are in relegation, so it's a case of second and third there. I'd worry a little bit for Leighlin Bridge after that little defeat and the Blues that are coming off that win with the boys back in the whole lot. And like Leighlin weren't impressive, I believe, in their win over Ireland. Like that was. They were disappointed with their performance, even though they won. So, the Blues, I hate to say it, I'd say the Blues could end up second there. I wouldn't be surprised on you. Now, the others are, it's a minefield now. You're going, as you go up the grades, it becomes a bit more of a minefield.
Fish.
You want to ask, aren't you?
I'm going to go for Leighlin Bridge in that one, to be honest. My God, the man couldn't possibly follow his own, could he?
Well, I did it last year against the Cocks and the sick of me, so maybe there's a bit of that superstition you get into. Yeah.
Okay, we move on then to the intermediate. Where is it here? So Group 2 is Tullow, Clamore, Michael and Grange. So obviously, we talked a lot about it. Who do you fancy to? Fish, you said you fancy. You're on a balance. You kind of said Grange to beat Nevon. Is that right?
Yeah.
Kev?
I think Grange might, just about there. Just about. And I think the other fixture, for me, at the minute, that was probably a naive thing to say. I haven't seen Eire in the flesh, but I think St. Patrick's and Clonmore are two standout teams in the thing. Give a narrow shout probably to Clonmore, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, there's a bit of a catch there. Yeah, so they have to, like, a draw will do Tullow to get straight through. Right in saying that, yeah? Just to recap. Yeah. And that's not something you wouldn't rule out in that one. But I would give Clonmore a narrow, very, very narrow nudge. But I like what I see with Tullow.
Well, I have far too many potential voters in all those villages, so I ain't picking anybody. I can do a little bit more in this one because there's less. So in Group 1, Eire sitting on top with 4, Balnabrana second with 2, and then you've Kildavin, and thank you, Siri, for destroying my page. So then, and Kildavin and Kilbride. Kilbride are up against it. I think we can all agree there. Now, if there's a team that would love to be up against it, it's Kilbride. But they would, even if they went on to 2 points, they wouldn't. They can't advance. I'm right in saying that, aren't they?
It depends. I think it depends because if Kildavin were to get a result, if Kildavin even draw, then if Kilbride were to win against Balnabrana, they'd actually get them on the head-to-head.
They would. Okay, so it's all to play for there. It's all to play for. If you're to pick 2 to come out of it, would you? Or sorry, would you pick? If you're to pick 3 to come out of it, would you go with the way it is at the moment? Eire, Balnabrana, 11.
Yeah, just about.
Not
but
necessarily in that order, but
yeah, well, Kilbride are like. I love Stephen Curry's interview the other day, by the way, and certainly isn't that what it's all about? Like, you see the kid in the arm, and I really, really enjoyed that one. I have to say, and I mean, he was so pleased at how he wasn't too disappointed over losing. Obviously, he was going to be disappointed, but he was pleased by the effort and the manner in which they went down. As he said, they died with their boots on or whatever. I don't suspect that Balnabrana, like, I'd be on the verge of nearly saying Kilbride. I think Kilbride have a good chance in this, to be honest with you. But I think, when it's all said and done, the 3 teams in, whatever order, without being too particular exact. And
you just reminded me of something there. We were chatting a few minutes ago about the county man, and when he gets blocked down or he gets tackled or whatever. Dara the other day, I should have mentioned him earlier. I think he scored 1-6. Like, he died with his boots on for his club. He was absolutely immense, right? But he's a fierce, popular fella. Like, there was times where he got knocks and lads belted him, but there was no big ironic cheers from Kildavin, and if there's ever a crowd would want to maybe jeer a Kilbride fella, it might be the Kildavin fellas, but Dara just seems to be one of these fierce, likeable fellas, and he's a super footballer as well. He curled over one free right out on the sideline under the stand, 45, maybe 46 meters out, and it was just child's play to him, Fish, out of that group,
I think the way it is probably the way it's going to end up. In fairness, you have to have, as I said earlier, full respect for Kilbride. I just think they might end up going to the well just a bit, one time too many now, maybe this time. But I think they'll acquit themselves very well at the weekend, barring some sort of a mathematical miracle. I don't think they can go through, really, can they?
Kilbride?
Yeah.
Again, it's
they're relying on Kildavin to beat. They're relying on Eire to beat Kildavin.
They're relying on Kildavin to beat Eire.
Kildavin to beat Eire.
Kildavin to get a point at least against Eire. That seems to be what they need. Like, these jokes, you know what? As much as I've given out about the structure of this championship in the past, the way things have panned out, it's proven to be quite interesting this weekend.
definitely.
Yeah, it really is. Now, this next one is going to really torment us, isn't it? We thought we were getting out the gap, and now you're Jesus, lad. What way do you go with this senior? Like,
Senior. So group one, Rangers, Tynryland, Bagnallstown, Fenagh. We know Fenagh are gone, and we know that they play Tynryland, and we know the score Tynryland potentially put up on them, and there's no disrespect to Fenagh, but the expectation is that Tynryland will win that. But that score is not going to matter if we end up in a situation where you've teams on 2 points. No, that doesn't come into it. Sorry, I'm talking nonsense. That doesn't come into it because all we're looking at here is the order of the top three. I'm right.
Starting. Yeah, it would also be the most thrilling thing in the world for Fenagh to go and beat them. Sorry,
like, spurs of a job.
Yeah, well, sure, it has things like that have happened in the past. So, like, yeah, but sure. Yeah, it's hard to know.
Would you fancy Rangers to beat Bagnallstown?
I don't think it's clear cut.
No.
Wouldn't think it's clear cut. Like, just to provide context, like, to see some of the scores Bagnallstown kicked the other night. Whenever they were forced to shoot from difficult enough angles at times, and Robbie Kane's in particular were sweet ones.
And are the Clarks fit?
Jamie played the other day. Yeah, Shane played the other day, and Shane must have a fast enough car because he was in Stradbally all end after. But maybe he was in a helicopter, I don't know. But he's fairly fit too. He could have ran up to it. But no, like, I won't be surprised Bagnallstown won that one, actually, to be honest with you. I'll give Bagnallstown an nod in that one, yeah.
That put them on 4. Tyrryland would be on 5 if they beat Fenagh, and Rangers would be on 3. So they'd go through. Then if that was to happen, it would be Tyrryland top the group, Bagnallstown in second, and Rangers third. Fish, what do you think? You go along with that?
To be honest, I think Bagnallstown probably might just have enough in the forward line. I think maybe to trouble Rangers. Tyrryland and Fenagh, obviously, Fenagh obviously know their fate. So it kind of depends on what sort of mindset they're going into that with. Are they kind of going to wait and kind of maybe that's not the match to peak in now? Maybe the match to peak in is coming further down the line. I don't know. But a Fenagh team on this day, if they want to build a bit of momentum and ensure that maybe they're in a good place for the survival battle, they could turn over Tynryland, but you'd expect possibly Tynryland to prevail now.
Yeah. And then, it was called out as the group of death when the balls came out with the hat, or the slips came out of the cup when the draw was made. Literally anything could happen in the other group. Pal, you had to put some points on the board. Play a rogue. It's out in the training centre. Fish, how are you calling that one?
I think Pal have a lot more to play for, obviously. They're in a sort of an unhappy position, I suspect, after the first 2 games. So I'd expect a bit of a kick in them. Maybe Pal, I think, for now.
Cuivine?
I'm going to go Air Oak. It's obviously there is a kick in Pal, but traditionally, bar the odd exception to the rule, kick Air Oak all the like. Air Oak don't care about Pal, and that's not anything against them. They do not give a shit about them. And it's like when Leighlin play Greg over here, and they're going to play in a few weeks' time, and it might be the one that Leighlin beat Greg in. And it's like when Carlow play Laois don't give a shit about Carlow, because they know no matter how good Carlow are, that they'll have that bit of belief that they're going to win. And this could come back to haunt me badly next week. But I feel Air Oak probably will, just about. And the other one, I think that's going to be tight. The other one, it always is. Sure, when does Rathvilly ever piss all over Old Leighlin or vice versa? No matter what way things go, obviously Rathvilly are in a bit of form, but I think that win for Auckland gives them a bit of momentum as well, and a bit of a pep in their step. They don't care about Rathvilly either. They never did, Brian. Like, you know that as well as anyone. I suspect that might be tight. I actually think that could be a draw. I'm going to go with a draw on that one, and Air Oak in the other one.
And it's interesting you say that, because there's history there. Rathvilly Auckland drew in 2010, drew in 13. You know, there's history there. Fish, Rathvilly, O'Loughlin, what do you think?
Yeah, I think in fairness to O'Loughlin, they probably, if the previous result is to count for anything, they really need to put in a performance again, back to back, really. But I think Rathvilly just looked that little bit level above the rest of the team so far. So I'd expect Rathvilly win.
Checks in the post. Thanks, Fish. Well, that concludes it then. Kev, unless there's any,
what was that, Fish? Fish saying something there. Go on ahead, Fish.
It's first evening, so I'm hardly going to go against it.
Well, listen, just to say, Kev, thanks a mil for letting me into the driving seat this evening, and I hope you enjoyed getting to contribute rather than have to be the one asking the questions. Fish, thanks, Paul Byrne. Thanks a million for coming on. Great to have a fresh voice and a lovely, fresh, young face as well on the screen. Lads, we're in for a serious weekend of football action. I know Kev, there's talks of maybe we'll do something mad and try cover as many games as possible, but I suppose watch this space and we'll see you all over the weekend and next Monday night.
Over now. Top Dunzer. Thank you. See you all.
The Left Wing Backs coverage of the Carlow Football Championships is brought to you in association with Talbot Fitness Carlow, Connolly's Top Line Bygdenstown, Scott's Bouncing Castles, J&J Services Tullow, Seamus Byrne Electrical, your number one for pitch floodlighting installation, Milano's Takeaway Bygdenstown, PFT Travel, the Arboretum Garden Centre, Leighlin Limited, Arch Spas and Carlow Electrical Services.